Welcome back to another episode of the Agronomy Answers podcast. The segment today, Lessons from Dad. And the lesson we're going to be talking about is you aren't the smartest person out there, but you can be the hardest working. I brought my dad to talk about this topic on this episode of the Agronomy Answers podcast. Thanks for joining me today, Dad. We're talking about this topic because you aren't going to be the smartest person out there, but you can be the hardest working. Now,
thanks, Zach. And I'm not the smartest person, but go ahead.
So this is a lesson you learned from your dad. Right. Now, how you learned this lesson is the first question of the day. How did you get told this lesson, or how did you learn this lesson without maybe your dad telling you specifically?
So just to kind of step back, I had made notes on a number of these different lessons over the years well after they actually happened. So most of the lessons from my dad were when I was growing up on the farm. And it was probably when I was in my 20s, early 30s, something like that, where I started going, hey, I need to write some of this stuff down because it's actually, some of it's pretty good. But yeah, I don't remember exactly where this came from or anything. I just know that my dad was big on, hey, you got to work really hard every day. Actually, it was two things for making money on the farm. He just talked about you've got to work really hard every day. And the way he would phrase that is you've got to make money with your back. And then the other side, he would say you got to be smart and work smart. Well, the way he would phrase that is you got to make money with the pencil. So it was make money with the pencil and with your back. And as far as the hardworking thing, he was just constantly pushing us to put in more hours, work harder, get more things done, make stuff look neat and clean, and do maintenance on everything. I mean, it was just all the time, every day, didn't matter. Even if he would come downstairs, house is perfectly clean. So my mom was in the hospital and passed away young. And so anyway, we had to take care of things around the house and stuff like that. So anyway, Dad would come in. There's literally like one magazine slightly out of place. And he'd just go ballistic that things weren't, it was a mess and everything else. But he was just on us all the time to keep working harder.
Yeah, and that's kind of more out inside in the personal life too at home, but in business too. Since you wrote this as a lesson that you aren't going to be the smartest out there, there's probably a situation where you felt you walked into a room or you were in a situation where you're like, I'm not the smartest. Now what? What happened after you found that out?
I think part of it, though, goes back to, and he would always say, you're smart, you can figure things out, but you may not have the experience or the knowledge on that particular topic. So you can learn it was one thing he always pushed us to learn and adapt and work on that. But then too, just whatever you do, you got to put all your effort into it and just keep working and grinding. And eventually, hopefully things turn out great.
So you talked about hard working quite a few times already. What does hard working mean? Is it more hours? Is it how intense you're working?
Both.
Is it what does it mean to be hard working?
Yeah. So for him, a lot of it was hours. The other thing was what exactly you're doing in those hours. Because I was just thinking about this yesterday. So he would complain when, let's say, even later in life, when I'm working on the computer. And with our business, there's a lot of stuff that has to get done by computer. Well, he didn't have a lot of respect for people who worked on computers. So, and granted, look at some of the richest people in the world today are people that have worked on computers. But he was always big on basically, again, with your back, working with your hands. And I mean, and think about it like for me, growing up on the farm, I had to scoop by hand hog manure every morning and every night. We had to physically go out and pull weeds out in fields. And I mean, that was just the time that he grew up and what he really knew. So, I mean, it changed then to be more, we got to be in the office and we're on the phone and we are doing things on the computer. That can still make money, but that, I would say, never brought as much respect from my dad. Although, I will say this, I remember one time after doing hog chores, I walk into his office, Hefty Seed Company, and he's been sitting in the office all day talking to farmers. I'm like, well, that seems like a lot more fun than scooping hog manure. But anyway, yeah, his perception of things was sometimes slightly different than reality.
So another question about this topic of working hard. What's a time where you worked hard, but it might not have like worked out completely, or you put in a bunch of hours, but it might not have gotten to the place where you wanted to go, but you learned a separate lesson from just working hard, putting in the effort and putting in the hours?
Well, at the time that things don't work out, it's very hard to say, "Oh, I learned a lesson from this," and boy, that's just great. So there was a book that came out in I think 1913 called Pollyanna, and Disney made a movie about that. And so even today, people refer to Pollyanna as you take everything that could be negative and you always turn it into a positive. I think that's awesome. But at the time, you're not thinking that at all, because if there was something that I did wrong, some job I did on the farm wrong, which I did lots of them, let's put it that way. And then my dad would yell at me to no end, and I'm like, oh, this is terrible, and that stinks. But now I look back on it and I go, okay, a couple of things I learned. So one is you have to work smart and hard and try to figure things out. And if you make a mistake, it's not the end of the world. I mean, we obviously didn't go bankrupt, and I didn't die or anything like that. So just do it again. Another thing was just you get thicker skin. And in life, especially in this day and age, look at the percent of people around the world that are depressed every day. I'm not depressed every day. I think part of that is because I got driven so hard earlier and yelled at so much. It's like, okay, I got to figure out how I'm going to overcome this. So now when there's some social media thing that, somebody's going to complain about something for me, I don't care, whatever. That's not tied to my happiness. But I just remember there was one time in basketball, we get to halftime, high school basketball, and we were getting beat by a team we shouldn't be getting beat by. And the coach came in and just yelled at us to no end. And a bunch of the guys are just like shaking in fear. And the coach walks out and they're all nervous about stuff. And I'm like, what are you guys talking about? That's not even 1/10 as bad as my dad would yell at me. We're fine. Let's go win. And we went out, played well, and everything was great.
Yeah, which there's a lot of points to that just lead into other business things, like just showing up and just knowing what you're doing is the right thing to do, or that it's not the right thing to do at all, and you just want to keep learning and showing up and being consistently doing that, and not be afraid to get yelled at in your scenario, or
but that's the
messing
thing.
up.
We sometimes don't know if it's right or wrong. I mean, it's not as simple as, so I love math because 1 + 1 always equals 2. But in the real world, for business or just interpersonal relationships, anything, 1 + 1 does not always equal 2. Sometimes it equals -20. Sometimes it equals 50. I mean, we don't know. So we just have to go and put in a best faith effort, work as hard as we can. And then let's go back to when you asked about the question of, is it hours or anything else? I mean, for me, hours is a really big thing. So even to this day, I'm trying to work more hours than almost anybody out there. And I maybe do it a little unconventionally. So, and my dad did that too, where it's, hey, I'm working lots of hours during the day. Then I'm going to come in and I'm going to have supper with the family. And then I'm going to go back out and work. Or, I mean, he just work odd hours sometimes. And as a farmer, sometimes you have to do that.
Yeah, and one of these stories you talk about in the book about not being the smartest but working hard is when you started a TV show, and your dad said, "We can start a TV show. Let's do it." And you had no idea what to do. Yet now we're 20 years down the road, more than 20 years, almost 30 years down
Yep.
the road, and it's still going. But it started from something you literally had no idea how to do, never done
Right.
any of it,
Correct.
and now it's been this long that it took. What did it take right away to be like, okay, we actually can do this? Or is it just something you're like, well, we're gonna try it and see if we fail?
Okay. So the story is this: there was South Dakota State University had this TV show 30 years ago, and they came in to us, to our office at Hefty Seed Company one year, and said, "Hey, would you guys like to sponsor the show?" And they talked to my dad and me. It was right at the end of the day, and I just remember that day. I was locking up. Dad was outside. I was just locking the door to the office that we're in right now, as a matter of fact. And he goes, we could do a TV show. I'm like, come on. And he said, well, you guys are doing these workshops and meetings and everything else. We could do that. I could talk about grain markets and stuff. So I go, well, we could, but I'm working like 70, maybe even 80 hours a week right now. How in the world am I going to find time to do that? And he goes, no, I think this is a good idea. So why don't you at least look into this? So I did. So I looked into that and worked on that for a while. And then the next spring, we filmed a pilot show and realized it was terrible. And the biggest thing is we have to have lots of background footage. And we also decided for the show that we wanted to make sure it's a little bit predictive rather than, we're just reporting on facts that already happened. We didn't want to make it a news show. We wanted to say, hey, in the next couple weeks, you're going to probably see this in your fields. Here's how you solve that problem. Well, in order to do that, we've got to film in advance. We got to have that footage way in advance. So my brother Darren spent most of that next year. Well, I shouldn't say that many hours, but he spent quite a few hours over the next year working with a cameraman to get footage of all these different things that would happen during the year. And then that way, when we started the show in the spring of 1998, we actually had footage for everything we were going to talk about for the most part.
So it's just a lot of pre-work and a lot of
Yeah.
hard work into something that you didn't know how to do, basically.
Yeah. So Bobby Knight has a quote that I really like. It was one of his core principles is almost everybody has the will to win. Almost no one has the will to prepare to win. I mean, it's just such hard work leading all up to, here's this TV show. Well, yeah, I mean, that may look easy in the end, but it's so much work in advance to figure out what you're going to talk about and practice and get all the background footage. And for every show that we do, it takes about 40 hours for someone to edit that show. I mean, it's really difficult to try to make me look good. So they're doing the best they can. And they put in all this footage and everything else. But also, we don't want to just see talking heads for half an hour every single week on TV. It's a little different in today's day and age with podcasts and all that kind of stuff. But I mean, farmers like to see crops. They want to see stuff growing in the field. They want to see something green. And so that's what we were trying to bring them. And also just the attitude about things. If you watch the news, it's almost all negative. And if you watch our show, it's almost all positive. So, hey, here's this weed. Oh, we have several different ways to control it. And here's how you do it economically. And here's how you can make more money when you do that particular job. So it's trying to make sure that we are talking about positive things, that there's hope for the future. And also, at the same time, we're doing all these jobs on the farm, we're thinking about the long term of, hey, we want to make the ground better. So for the next generation, it's even better than it was for our generation.
Okay, so for someone that's maybe younger and feels like they're behind, or maybe that they're deeper into their career or farming career,
Yep.
and they feel like they're behind, what's something that they could do right now that helps them work harder or get further ahead or be more consistent? What's one thing that you would recommend?
Well, this may be one of the lessons in there. I don't remember, but it's been a long time since I wrote the book. But it's reading about your profession. So that was another thing that my dad was pretty big at. And granted, a lot of stuff was farm magazines and everything else. But he also talked to lots of other farmers to try to find out, well, what's working for you and what could potentially work for me. So there's so much information out there now that we never used to have because of the internet. And even for us, you can go back and watch all our TV shows, listen to all the radio things we've done. I mean, we put out all these workshop books. I mean, we have so much information out there, even just from us. So if somebody really wants to learn about, let's say, soil testing, for example, they could literally watch hundreds of hours of our videos and learn how to read a soil test and be an expert in just a couple of weeks if they really wanted to. But the thing is, that's going to mean setting other things aside. How many hours are you going to spend with your family? How many hours are you going to spend at work? How many hours are you going to spend at church? And how many hours are you going to spend with friends? So for me, I cut down on the friend hours, so I had lots of time for the other things, and work was, one of the higher priorities other than God and family.
Yeah, and to kind of wrap things up, just a couple practical tips about kind of what we've all talked about. Like, first one I would say is just showing up and being prepared, because the first step to doing anything is just showing up and being there.
Yep.
And then number two is asking good questions, like figuring out why something's one way and learning about it, and then actually following up and figuring out what that answer is and learning it. And then number 3 is doing the reps, being consistent, showing up, asking good questions, and just consistently doing that over time.
Yeah, but let me say this too. It's great to learn about things in advance and study in books and everything else, but nothing teaches you like actual on the job training. And that was another big thing for my dad, like, oh, going to college, don't think you're going to come back and be all smart. I mean, sure, you're going to learn a lot of things, and that's great. Nothing wrong with that. In fact, we want that. But the point is, at any job you're going to be in, once you're in the job, you're going to figure out, ooh, I need to tweak this and improve on that. And it's just constantly, every day, trying to figure out how do you get better. So put in lots of hours, work on constant improvement, and eventually, hopefully, things work out.
Well, this has been a great episode talking about lessons from Dad. Thanks so much for being on the show.
You bet. Thanks.
And thank you for watching or listening to this episode of the Agronomy Answers podcast. Make sure you leave a like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one.